meeting is being recorded.
Good evening. It is 6:26 on June 26, 2024. I'll call this meeting to order.
Pledge allegiance.
Well, this meeting is being recorded, just so you guys know. Okay, next Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And is that thing loud? New business is NOI for transmission line for New England Power.
Mr. Chairman, we have Robert Tyler from BSC Group participating remotely. Robert, I'm going to allow you to share the screen as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
So please feel free.
Based on the background with the manure spreader, I might have made the right call being remote today. Hi, my name is Robert Tyler. I'm a professional wetland scientist with BSC Group. I'm here to present an NOI application on behalf of National Grid doing power business as New England Power. The subject of the NOI includes 18 exploratory soil borings along the T20 transmission line in Dudley, Massachusetts. The borings will require access and drill work within BBW 100-foot buffer to BBW locally regulated BLSF, 100-foot buffer, and 200-foot riverine buffer. Work is confined to existing utility access roadways and work paths, with temporary timber matting being employed as needed to cross wetland resources. A site visit and wetland delineations have previously been conducted by BSC Group. This NOI is being submitted in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Dudley Wetland Protection Bylaw and associated regulations. Throughout the project, crews will implement best management practices to avoid adverse impacts to adjacent resource areas, and crews will restore disturbed areas to pre-constructed conditions once the work is completed. Additionally, during the excavation work, during the drilling portions, spoils will be maintained appropriately. At this point, I would be happy to share a copy of the mapping remotely via my screen, if that's okay, and answer any questions that the Commission might have. And I respectfully request that the NOI be accepted. Thank you for your time. So here is a copy of the mapping, and I've zoomed to the Dudley section, so you can see here, we're basically going to... Yes?
Robert, before you keep going, for the Commission, just so you know, this does have a DEP file number that was issued. DEP did not have any comments at all.
Okay.
Sorry, Robert, please go ahead.
No, you're fine. Thank you for the clarification there. This is a pretty standard soil borings. Basically, they're going to be coming in along these red-yellow roadways and accessing within the work paths. Within the green wetland there, you can see that will be a matted resource, so temporary construction mats. They'll do the soil boring, takes about a day, and then they pull the mats when they're done with that. And this will happen at 18 separate structures along this utility structure. So here you can see where it's not within a wetland resource, but it is within buffer zones. And I'll just kind of scroll through these. If anyone wishes for me to hold at any particular portion of the map, I'm more than willing to do so. Again, you can see some temporary matting. They'll likely be able to largely avoid that wetland. Temporary matting. And the resources have all been reflagged so that the crews are aware of where everything is. Are there any questions?
No. You have any questions from the board? Are there any butters present?
I'm sorry?
No, we're all
Who's
set.
asking for a butter?
No, we're good.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is a standard for boring exploration. Boring in the term of soil boring, not boring as in wants to sleep. I've been seeing these and actually writing orders for these all around the common. So this has become pretty standard fare. So standard order of conditions approved by the commission should handle this just fine.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to issue a notice of intent for T20 transmission line, ROW, New England Power Company.
Second.
You mean an order of conditions?
Yeah, standard order conditions.
standard order of conditions.
What's that?
You mean in order of conditions?
That's what I, yeah, an order of conditions for a 120 transmission line, ROW, New England Power Company, BSC Group, Department 146, 0800.
That's the DEP number. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next is a public hearing continued for Hayden Pond Road, Brian LeBrecq Living Trust. Matt, can you bring us up to date on this?
Put it on the screen so that we can see it. Thank you.
Oh, it gets a stream? I don't think they want to watch that.
There it is. Oops, it went away. No.
Thank you.
Okay, how's that, better? Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yep.
Okay. So to update the commission, I've been working with Tim Callahan, who is the person of record who did this drawing, and with Mr. LeBrecq to come up with a replanting plan that met what the commission desired in the first place. So we have the 25-foot no-touch zone area, which would be demarcated here. What I'm recommending is that a posted beam fence be placed here, where the no-touch zone is, to permanently demarcate it. The area is going to be planted with a shrub planting, which I would recommend that the commission have supervised by a environmental company. Mr. LeBrecq did have an environmental company, I believe it was
Goddard.
Goddard came out and did the wetland delineation. So he could probably engage them to come out and supervise the plantings, do monitoring reports to the commission when they're finished being planted, what the condition of them are, and then do what we call biannual reports. So June 30th and October 30th over 2025 and 2026, the wetlands consultant would be required to report to the commission the condition of the lot, which requires them to go and inspect it more than twice a year. That's just normal course. So it would have a wetlands person supervising it. I've worked with this particular company in the past on some of their plans. They usually do a pretty good job on getting stuff implemented. So I have confidence that they will be able to do the job. The gravel area that he wants to put in there now, I know the commission cannot consider zoning matters in its decision. So I know that I have been given messages with regards to zoning issues. That's between the applicant and the building commission, not the conservation commission. So the commission needs to base its decision on whether or not you feel it conforms with your replanting plan and his gravel area is in conformance with floodplain standards. And it appears to me that based on the grading shown on the plan, it won't fill floodplain. The only thing I would recommend, even though we cannot address directly, we can't say we can say on the order, any use of the gravel area must conform with zoning. You can do that. So what I would recommend is that, simply I can ask the engineer to take the word storage off proposed gravel area. So if Mr. LeBrecq wants to go out there, park his car, walk around the shoreline, sit down, have a picnic with his family or something, and enjoy the view of the pond, there's nothing in the law that says that he can't do that. As far as the remainder of the issues to what he can do, what he can't do with regards to storage, he has to work that out with the building commissioner or the zoning board of appeals. As long as he does not store any material in there, meaning gravel or anything like that that would constitute fill, if the building inspector, the ZBA, lets him park something on there that's not commercial equipment, so I believe commercial equipment would be out of the question. That's up to them, as long as he does not filling on the area. So this plan calls for the area to be completely cleaned up, restored. This small area here, that would be a small gravel section, is within floodplain area. So that appears to pass the standards under your bylaw and your wetland protection. 25-foot buffer zone will be restored, will be replanted, but I strongly recommend that you have the 25-foot zone is marked out. So I would recommend, just to make sure there's no mix-ups in the future, that you get like a post and beam, like, a country style ranch fence that you can just put around this 25-foot zone. Nothing like a mesh fence, just something like, we all know what a ranch fence looks like. It allows for critter movement. It's not made to constitute a block, it's made to constitute a demarcation. Like a ranch fence would be something that would blend in. When the commission issues a release from the permit, once the commission is satisfied that the plantings have taken and everything has been restored, you can add a perpetual condition in his release requiring that the fence be maintained in perpetuity. So it's not like he can do the fence and then, he takes that, sells the lot, and then, decides that he's just gonna leave and the other person doesn't. No, because the perpetual condition would be on the deed, so it would show up to anybody that subsequently bought the lot that there's supposed to be a permanent demarcating fence here. And that will meet your bylaw. It will allow him some passive use of property, because it is his lot, and will resolve the issues that were caused by him cutting the trees out, doing what he had done. So that's it from me.
Okay, I noticed that on the notes, it says owner is required to remove stumps and place a minimum of 3 inches of topsoil and grass seedings within 25 feet of no disturb area. What's that pertaining to?
So essentially, the engineer is recommending that the little stumps that were over here that he's got marked be taken out and put in so that the, what do you call it, the shrubs can be planted, but the commission can basically say that he can't do that. You can have him grind the stumps in place, or just leave them there, but it's not necessary to remove the stumps, so we can remove that from the plan as well.
Yeah, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with removing the stumps.
Then I would definitely recommend that if you decide to issue an order, that your motion include that the stumps be remained in place or be ground in place, but not excavated out.
You have trouble removing the stumps in here?
No, in here.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
You're digging up the whole thing.
Any questions from the board?
Do that.
Any other questions?
It's gonna tear it up too much by removing the stumps, yeah. Cause more issue,
Right.
yeah.
Well, he's recommending that you clean up the area by the water and replant by the water and the pot where he
When-
wants to put the storage area, it's gonna be gravelled, and the stumps can be removed there, but not along the water. How big is that buffer?
25-foot buffer.
Huh?
It's 25 foot.
feet.
Yeah.
25 feet from the water.
All right, any questions from the,
He's just gonna
Butters?
replant.
I have numerous questions. Can I ask them from here, or do you want me to come to the microphone?
you need to speak to the mic.
All right,
So-
I will try. This is, one of my first concerns is how Mr. LeBrecq accesses his piece of property. He currently has used my property and has taken down my trees and gone through my area and cleaned that whole thing out so that he could access his property and do all of this tree removal. And I want it clearly stated that I do not give him permission to use my piece of property as an access to his. I think that's really an important piece for me. It'll be posted. You know, he has just wrecked my whole area over there.
I can understand what you're saying, but we can't enforce that because we don't know where the property lines are. This is not,
Why not?
this is just conservation.
Didn't Mr. LeBrecq have to do a survey before he started tearing things apart?
But then that would be an argument between you and Mr. LeBrecq. It wouldn't involve the Conservation Board.
Okay, all right. That was my first issue, is I want it clearly stated.
Matt has a question. Matt wants to state something.
It's not a question, it's kind of a middle ground to address that concern. While we can't, you're right, we have no authority to regulate their argument over access, but what we do have the right to put on the order is just a statement, just a blanket statement on the order that the work on the replanting of the proposed gravel area will be accessed only off of Hayden Pond Road on the subject property. We don't have to mention anything about any other property, just that property. So what it accomplishes is what she is asking for, but it's worded in a manner that addresses the property owner. So what we're telling him is, you gotta do this work, you can only access it off of Hayden Pond Road on your own lot. Can't use any easements or anybody else's property. We don't have to put it in those words, but that's what it'll be.
Okay. Second, all of his plans are based on the fact that he took out 16 trees. There were, in fact, 32 tree stumps over there, all of them more than 6 inches. So I feel like the 16 trees negates this whole plan. And if you look at this map that he's put out, where the circles are, there are 16 circles. He hasn't encircled anything in what he's calling a storage area so that he can park his vehicles that he doesn't need over there. And there are only I counted on the map in the 25-foot buffer zone, only 5 areas that say new plantings. I don't see how that ameliorates any of the others.
Matt?
Mr. Chairman, okay, so in an area like this, we're not gonna count tree for tree. What we're gonna do is we're gonna count for what were the impacts of him removing the trees, and how can we remediate those impacts. So in examining the area, the first thing you look for with tree cover is how is it going to affect shading value going over that pond. The answer is there's plenty of trees left by the shoreline, and I've been there during sunny days, watched the way the sun swings. The tree canopy that is left will provide adequate protection from shading value of that pond. So now what you gotta look at is you gotta look at potential runoff. If we turn around and have to replant trees, he's not gonna turn around and replant the exact dimension of trees, and the exact height, and the ages, which are probably pretty old, the trees that he replaced. It's not realistic, it's not logistically feasible. And in order to actually accomplish something like that could cause more problems than they can resolve. So when I looked at this, I said, okay, well, you have an area that has a fairly level surface. It does have some runoff that trickles through it. So we're gonna do shrubs in place of trees, because the shrubs will grow in a lot faster. It will provide more of a vegetative buffer, and it will accomplish the same things instead of having him plant 1 or 2 inch diameter saplings that are going to take 20 years before the maturity benefits will even be felt. You have shrub plantings going on, they will grow in a lot faster, you'll see the benefits a lot faster. From an environmental standpoint, it's an adequate substitute. As far as what's going on in his gravel area, that's out of the 25-foot zone. If he meets standards of floodplain and he replants the 25-foot zone, he will meet the requirements under our bylaw and the Wetland Protection Act to make sure that impacts to the area around Hayden Pond are mitigated. So those are the standards that we're given by law, and that's what we judge.
It just seems to me like a few shrubs, 5 shrubs, which are considered new plantings, hardly begin to cover the area.
So as I stated, he's going to have a professional wetlands company supervising this. So we're not gluing him saying you got to do 16. He may wind up doing 30. He may wind up doing 40. It depends on what the proper density is going to be. And that's something that's going to need to be worked out in the field with the environmental company.
That he's paying for.
That he's paying for.
I've also been very concerned about the fact that it says on his stump removal, which will erode that entire.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
He negated it.
And the creation of a storage area that, I mean, he still currently has his 2 trailers over there. It's being used as a storage area. And it hasn't.
Between him and the building commissioner's aware of this. I've spoken with the building commissioner about this on several occasions.
Yeah.
We are going to have him remove the word storage out of the plans. So whatever he does moving forward with the building commissioner and the zoning board of appeals, if he chooses to try to get a variance, which would require.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will.
That's going to be between them, as long as he maintains the elevations he's supposed to maintain on the ground under our local standards and complies with this plan, then what he would be doing would be perfectly valid.
May I ask what new wattles are? I don't know
So
what
where it
the,
says existing erosion control up on the top of the plan where I'm waving my cursor in,
yeah,
okay? All of those are gonna have to be replaced. And again, that's gonna be up to the environmental company that he's going to have to retain. They're gonna have to come in, tell him whether, how the erosion control is working, and he's gonna have to add new erosion controls. The standards under our permits require these controls to be maintained. and they would require them to be replaced as they age. And again, the environmental company that would monitor the growth also has to monitor the erosion protection. So all this is gonna have to be monitored as part of his remedial plan.
Yeah. And there's no remediation for the damage on mine that I have to sue him for, is that correct?
That's, that's kind of the frustrating part for the Conservation Commission on this. We can't enforce that because it's your property, regardless of what he did. If we enforced on it, we'd have to go after you. And then you'd have to sue him. So if you can work that out with him, great. If we can help you work that out with him offline, great. But if you want us to start an official action, unfortunately, you would have to be a party to that action. And I know you guys will hopefully work something out, but I just don't want to go there.
I don't want to go there either. I've been hearing from day one, oh, don't worry, I'm going to fix it. Oh, don't worry, I'm going to fix it. The tree company got a little excited. They took a little more than they should. I feel like 6 months went by when I came down here every other week and said, look, do something. And nothing was done for 6 months. That's all I have to add. Thank you. No, that's.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, before we go on,
Yep.
somebody signed in by the name of Fred. If Fred could identify himself.
Yeah, I'm Fred LaCour, I'm a butter.
Okay, so Fred, during my talk, you mumbled something about that he would have to pay for, and it came over the speaker. So could you mute yourself? If you need to speak, just let us know, and you can unmute.
Sure.
Thank you.
You done with him? Is he all set?
Does Fred LaCour wants to state something?
Fred, if you have something you need to say, and you want to do it now, go for it.
Yeah, well, I would ask you, if he takes two things. One, if he takes the storage area off of the plan, then what uses is this going to be allowable on this property in the future, without?
Again, that's between him and the building commissioner, and that's something we can't answer. So if there's something that's not allowable under zoning, and he wanted to use it for something that wasn't allowable, you have to go for a variance.
Okay, so right now, he's asking for a storage area. Why would you take that off?
So we take the word storage off because really what he's asking for is a gravel area that he wants to use for storage. Under the law, if he meets the floodplain section, we can allow him to do the gravel area. If he uses it for storage under a variance, that's between him and the building commissioner. If he uses it to say just park his car, to go on the lot, occasionally, maybe with his family, he's allowed to do that. But putting the gravel area down, as long as it meets floodplain considerations, under the local bylaw and the Wetland Protection Act, as long as it stays out of the 25-foot zone, is an allowable activity. I won't say use because the Wetland Protection Act regulates activity, not use. It's the building commissioner that would regulate use. So, activity meaning construction activity.
Okay, another question would be, most plans I see have an indication on them of where the floodplain boundary is, and I don't see it on this plan.
Okay, can you see my hand circling around?
Yes.
Okay. See this red line?
Okay.
So this is the floodplain line right here. So it means the entirety of the lot, with the exception of this little corner right here, is within the floodplain. This area right here and this section of Hayden Pond Road is not. So this part of Hayden Pond Road, the valley lot here, your lot here, this part of your lot appears to be within the floodplain. That's actually normal around pond shorelines, a lot of them. So again, as I stated, as long as he meets the elevation requirements, which this plan does accomplish, he's okay.
Okay, good question. That area that's on his property that is outside of the floodplain boundary, if he excavates that down to put a driveway in, it would become the same elevation as the land next to that area. So that would fall into the floodplain.
No, he doesn't have a driveway slated to be excavated. He has a gravel storage area that does have elevations that conform to floodplain standards. So he's gonna have to go by those elevations. The commission requires, before it will release the permit and certify it as compliant, they're gonna require an as-built plan. So survey would have to go out and reshoot the grades to make sure that they meet floodplain requirements. That's a normal boilerplate standard for something for work in a floodplain. That's what we normally require.
You said as-built, which means that the excavation in that area would be done before it was resurveyed.
That's correct, and if it's not compliant, he would have to redo it.
Because right now, he does not have very good access from the road, and I don't, except for through Valley's property, and I can't picture it having access without lowering that grade.
So if he lowers the grade, he's creating floodplain. So all he's doing is creating more floodplain if he lowers it to floodplain level. You know, I mean, that's actually not illegal. Filling floodplain and making floodplain no longer floodplain, that's illegal.
Oh, thank you. That's interesting. Okay.
But the activity would have to be regulated by this order of conditions. But if you came in and said, I want to create more floodplain on my property, we're going to say more power to you. But it'd have to be permitted still. That's why he's here.
Any more questions from Mr. LaCour?
I'm good for now, thank you.
Okay.
I'm Jim Scanlon, 16 Norman Lane. I'm on the pond farther down from this location. I'm very familiar with it. That gentleman just addressed the majority of my concerns, I think. How would you get on and off that property? The only access point that is low enough to get on that directly off the street is the Valley's property, which has been used, obviously, because it's the only way to get on and off. The leading edge along the street, outside the floodplain area, because now I see where that delineation line is at least a couple of feet higher, if not 3 feet higher than a road. So there's no access. There's no way to get on and off that property. So I guess what was just discussed here is if he intends on, or he goes ahead and drops in the area or that entire street frontage so that that lot serves his needs a little bit better to get his property on and off, he'll then be probably below the floodplain area. So he's created more floodplain.
Correct.
Okay, that cleared that up. That's the biggest reason I was up here. Another concern of mine was, did we not agree that he would grind the stumps now?
Right.
Not excavate. I know what your concern is. I have the same concerns. To stump it, you need an excavator in there or a backhoe, when he owns an excavator, to take that out. So now that while the machine's in there, why don't we just start moving, fill around existing earth, bringing in importing gravel, to flatten that area out, and lo and behold, we're gonna have, a nice little parking lot for his stuff over there. If you stump it, and you just sweep, the existing fill back into the hole after the stump is gone, that would be one thing, but you're gonna have an excavation there, and you wouldn't have any fill to sweep back in, other than lowering the mound into the holes,
No.
How do you read
He's
that,
not,
Judge? Huh?
He's not gonna stump that in the buffer zone.
Gotta grind it.
Gotta grind it.
Yep. Okay. I think a couple meetings back, the conversation was the joke that the hay bales and the existing sill fence that he threw up. They were a joke. You could throw a cat underneath the fence. I thought the conversation was that he had to bury the bottom of the fence by hand, no equipment in there, because that's what caused all this, was the equipment in there. He was to drop the bottom of the fence 6 inches below grade. So on that plan, I honestly can't see it that well, but his existing wattles and hay bales and silt fence that are there presently, do those remain? You're familiar with the site, you know where those are. Are those remaining, and does he have to modify them to make them actually legal to do their job? Or is that gonna be replaced with, I thought someone just said something about new wattles?
It says right here on the plan that
Yeah.
he submitted that new wattles perimeter to be installed prior to any construction of the gravel storage area and after completion of the new plantings within the 25-foot buffer area.
So
And
I'm
again, that's gonna be monitored for performance by an environmental company.
right, so, I'm sorry, but are those wattles gonna be put in around the new proposed gravel area? Or are they gonna replace the existing hay bales and silt fences that he has, that he had already installed?
So it's gonna be a combination of the two. There's gonna be extra areas added, and then the area that he's got right now going around the perimeter of the plantings, protecting the water body, will be replaced,
Yeah,
and modified so that they're more conforming. And again, that's one of the services the environmental company will provide to him to make sure that he's done it correct. Up to this point, the site's been monitored to ensure that there's been no siltation going into Hay Pond off of this site. But he's gonna have to actually have this company go in and say, okay, this is what you gotta do, and this is how you're going to do it.
okay,
And that's gonna have to be done, and it's gonna have to be reported to us a couple times a year from the company. Most of your companies out there are really good about this stuff. They specialize in it. They're really good at reporting. They're really good at checking in. I mean, I know outside the confines of Dudley across the state, I do a similar line of work myself. So I know most of these companies that are out there, they're pretty good. So, and I can deal with them. I can talk to them.
yeah, understood. So if you could just walk us through one last time. Mr. LeBrec's intention was to come to the Conservation Board, get an order of conditions, and it's come to the point where he's given us a proposed drawing, which we're looking at right here. And evidently, you folks don't see any changes. Is that an existing, the elevations that we're looking on this plan, or are those proposed elevations?
Their elevations are proposed.
Of the proposed, okay. And those elevations would meet, the standards of the Conservation Committee, of the state of Mass?
That's correct.
Okay. So he's got it that far. So he would be looking to get by this board, but his next hurdle would be to speak with the building commissioner and/or zoning commission. Is it zoning or just a building commissioner? As to use and so forth?
The building commissioner is also the town's zoning official.
Yeah.
He would be the one that would send somebody to the ZBA by a denial. So as far as, again, as I stated earlier, you know, the building commissioner keeps being brought up. We have nothing to do with that. Can't consider it, can't do anything. But what we can do is remove the word storage from the area so that there's no misunderstanding. We regulate the activity. So if he wants to put in some gravel in an area that meets standards of the Wetland Protection Act, which this proposal does, we can allow the permit to be issued, but he still has to meet, for the use of the property, every other town board's requirements. So he'd still have to go to the building commissioner and say, well, I've got this gravel area, I want to do this with it. Building commissioner will say, well, you can't. So I want the word storage removed from storage areas, so that there's no,
I understand.
if I could be allowed.
I understand exactly what you're getting at and why you're suggesting that. And I would say we go along with that too.
Yeah, I don't want any misunderstandings. I don't want anyone coming back in the future. Like if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, knocking on wood, you know, I don't want somebody going with that plan and saying, well, it says storage area. That means they allowed it. No, we're just allowing the activity for the gravel. Its use is up to the building commissioner. The building commissioner knows this, I've spoken with him. So just to prevent any misunderstanding, we'll just have the word storage removed from the plan and it'll say proposed gravel area.
Understood, Matt? Is there anything else that comes to mind while I'm up there?
What happens if he doesn't go to the building commissioner and just does what he wants? Do we have any recourse?
The question from the group here is if he just proceeds without going to the building commissioner, without getting the proper answers, without providing the proper proposed plans. I mean, yeah, it has proposed, but honestly, it doesn't show me where he gets on and off this property, where his access is or anything of the like. But I would imagine the building commissioner would say, what are your intentions? How are you getting on and off this property? Let's take a look at it. If he decides to go further forward without, he's gotten your permission, because it kind of looks to me like you guys are pretty close to being able to put it up for a vote. He's by you. If I think the answer is going to be here, we have to take it up with the other commissions.
It's currently being used as a storage area.
Right. There was a cease and desist, and I think there's 2 trailers sitting on that property right now that were put back on the property. He also owns a small excavator that he did the majority of the work already with. He's got a good-sized dump trailer so that he can bring materials onto the property and off the property as well. And then he's got his personal trailers, you know, as we all do for the boats, for the jet skis, for the ski mobiles, whatever have you. In the summertime, we'll be looking at bare trailers, probably with nothing on them, because they'll be in the water over at Pierpont where he lives. But in the wintertime, these boats, this excavator, no doubt, ATV, not sure about ski mobiles, speedboat, pontoon boat, all those items have oil and gas. We all have to be careful how we store ours. We're responsible for any kind of a leak. Is that a consideration for this board or any other board here for us to take up, that that's the type of thing he's storing there? He doesn't have, you know, huge backhoes and you know, he's not an excavation contractor, but he's got a decent size excavator and so forth. Is there a concern about parking all these trailers with all the equipment on these trailers throughout the fall, winter, spring?
That would be a construction site. I don't think that that's allowed by zoning.
Yeah, and again, we're going into zoning issues.
I know.
And we have to stop, because that's not if he runs afoul of the building commissioner is gonna have to handle that part of it. The building commissioner gets copied on these permits. He knows the issue. He knows we're considering that, so
Right.
he has knowledge of the lot. It's not like somebody's doing something, no one told anybody, none of us on the face of the planet, except for maybe a few people, know that that's going on in that lot. It's a common knowledge thing now throughout town. The town departments know what's going on, so I'm assuming the building commissioner is gonna keep an eye out.
Great. Matt, I just wanted to bring it up for the record, you know, in front of the group,
Yeah, no,
so that
totally understand.
the group knows it has been specifically been said. But yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Oh, you want that?
Yeah.
I just have just a couple things to say.
Tell me who you are.
My name's Cheryl. I live on Sunrise Shores. So I just have a couple questions. I spoke to Nelson a few times, and I spoke with him this morning, and he said it's a no accessory plot of land. which means he cannot, by any means, store anything on that piece of property. With that being said, why does he have the trailer? You have the authority, you're the commission, you have the authority to tell him to remove the trailer. It's there illegally anyway. He said it's a no accessory plot of land. You need to have a house in order to store a trailer that he has there, the plastic. He clearly does not care about animal life. You have a big piece of plastic on property. He doesn't care about our land. I've been there since 1964. That's how long my family's been there. All our families, we've lived there for years and years, and we pass them on to our children and our grandchildren. This man doesn't care. He lives on Pierpoint. He knows the rules of the water. He knows you're not supposed to go in and just abolish all the trees. He did that knowing that it was wrong, and we're allowing him to do it. We beg you, you're our only hope. He's going to destroy our water. What's going to happen when the edge of the water, by the road, it's probably about this high. What's going to happen, it's going to go like this. He's going to be in and out, and all the water from the road and everything else from the sand and salt is going to go right into our pond. We care about it. We take care of it. We give money to take care of the weeds. What's going to happen, like Jim said, when he has all his big equipment there? How are we going to get rid of it? Nelson told me how hard it is to tell this man to take things off his property. It's not easy. He said it can take months in the court system and it costs money. It's not easy to do. Don't allow him to do it. Once it's allowed, it won't get turned around. Can't you do it for us? Please. Please.
Yeah, I mean, we've already addressed this issue. The issue's been raised several times now, just by a few different people in several different ways. The answer is the same: regulate activity. So he's proposing an activity. If it meets the standards under the Well Protection Act and our local bylaw, which the restoration does, this proposed gravel area meets, then I mean, we're basically duty bound to either say yes or no at that point. I've recommended several conditions that can address a lot, like the environmental concerns. We've proposed like an enormous amount of monitoring with an environmental company. Same obstacles that building commissioner has with court and enforcement conservation commissions also have. As far as anybody's performance is a function of their willingness to cooperate. He's at this point been cooperative with us. How he deals with the building commissioner now is between him and the building commissioner. This is a building commissioner issue as far as what's being parked on the property. The detritus and the other materials as part of his permit are going to have to be cleaned up. That's a given. That's a standard part of our orders. So all that's going to be cleaned up. Again, I recommend that we do a ranch style fence around here so that we demarcate that buffer zone. So he plants in the buffer zone, does his fencing, does his gravel area here, and moves on. But in order to do that, a lot of that stuff's going to have to be taken off the property to begin with. You've got this existing foundation. He's going to have to plant around that, plant around here. This is not a whole heck of a lot of room to have a gravel area when a good chunk of his line is going to be taken up by plantings now. So.
Once the gravel driveway is in, it's game on. He will do whatever he wants to do. He's proven it by knocking all the trees down. When you buy a piece of property, I know that my property is between these two microphones. I don't go over here and start cutting trees. When you buy land, you know what is your land. Clearly, he knew his land was here, and he went over here. He cut everything down. I don't know if you've gone by there. The land is a mess. It is a complete mess. It is not right. It's hurtful. And someone like Jackie, who's in her 80s, I find it appalling that she has to stand here and fight for this. She's an elderly woman. She shouldn't be fighting for her property to be done right.
Just to be clear, I don't feel old.
It just isn't right. She shouldn't have to go through this. We need to do the right thing. Don't allow that gravel driveway. I'm telling you, once that gravel driveway is in, he will park whatever he wants there. And how are we gonna stop it? None of us are gonna be able to. If you don't allow the driveway, then it's fine. The property is safe and everything is good. It's this high. It will now be down here. This is protecting our water. Once it's down here, what's protecting it? Nothing. Nothing is protecting it. Everything is gonna go right into the water. All his mud and his junk and everything else that I've been watching him do. It just isn't right. Do the right thing, please.
Commissioner Matt? Can I ask Matt a question? Matt, once that proposed gravel area is lowered, where will the stormwater runoff, which way will that go?
It'll
Okay.
head into the lot, into the vegetative buffer over here.
It'll go towards that buffer.
Yeah, and that's why we're making a plan. I mean, there's overland flow going there now. It's not gonna be much of a change in drainage pattern.
But after it's lowered, does it get any worse? Is there any more?
Not really. It's too small of an area to make that kind of a difference. The only time you did it is like if you dug like if somebody went in there and dug like a trench, kind of like how DPWs will dig trenches on sides of roads to funnel flow. He'd have to funnel. He's not funneling. He's grading with a block. He's not creating a funnel. So, as long as he's not creating a point source, which he is not doing in this plan, there's really not much of it from this plan. There's really no significant change in pattern.
George, why does it have to be that big? If they're just gonna park a car there, why does it have to be that big?
You have to ask him.
It's legal, right?
Yeah.
He's legal to make something that big.
He wants to store things
As long as it's
there.
upland.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
He does.
Why does it have to be as big as it is? He's just gonna park a car there.
All right. Someone want to make a motion, we can just continue this to the next
It's out of our
meeting?
jurisdiction. Zoning has to be in charge of it.
Matt?
Mr. Chairman, Fred has a comment.
Matt, I got a question. I admit I missed a little bit here, but if I cut down all the trees on my property along the water, what's the consequences of that to me?
Same as him, we're gonna make you come in with an engineered plan or some type of plan to restore it.
That's it. So
Well, I mean, unless, I don't know what else you want us to do. That's what our legal mechanisms are. That's what our legal mechanisms
But
are. You violate,
there's no real penalty for doing it.
it depends on your cooperation.
There's no real penalty. No, there's no penalty. There's just, I can plant some shrubs and be good to go. I can plant half as many shrubs as trees I cut.
With all due respect, Fred, you're oversimplifying it now.
A little bit.
This is very oversimplified. So, the cost of the plantings it's probably gonna have to take is pretty good. Cost of the monitoring from the environmental company, these guys aren't cheap. It's gonna cost a pretty penny to have these guys on the property for a good 2 years. This is not like they're gonna plant and walk away. They're gonna have to monitor this for like 2 years. So, this is not like we're saying, oh, just plant a couple of bushes, good. That's a definite oversimplification.
Okay, but I still don't see, oversimplified to me would be 16 shrubs equals 32 trees. The math doesn't add up.
I think that
And again, as I stated earlier, that's not a hard, fast figure there. It will likely increase, but that's gonna have to be done in the field.
I just have one other thing. Like, how come in other states, like in Maine and New Jersey, someone cut illegal trees down, and it cost them hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace, they had to replace the exact tree? How come in our state it doesn't work that way?
And we're fined.
And we're fine. It just happened in Maine not too long ago.
Big fines, Maine and California.
Like, why are we allowing, that would mean that I might as well just go home right now and just go crazy around my own property. That's the precedence that we're showing. We're not, we need to do the right thing. Accountability.
Isn't that why there's a buffer zone between the gravel and the pond? The buffer zone where he's gonna replant shrubs and trees, I'm not on anybody's side, but I'm just looking at the map. You got a buffer zone between the gravel, where he's gonna put whatever he puts in there, supposed to be boat trailers, I guess, I don't know. And the pond, there's a buffer zone there, which Matt is saying he's gotta plant all kind of shrubs and trees back in there to keep any water from just flowing there and anything that the land will hold it back or clear it. I think anybody that lives on the water probably has, they might not even have they probably got a buffer zone of lawn. You know, like myself, you know, I live on the water, and my buffer zone is my lawn from my driveway.
Well, put yourself in our shoes. How would you feel right now? I'm sure you would feel like us, being that you
No,
live
I
on the
know what you mean,
water.
but there was a time when you people were building, everybody that lives on that
Yeah.
pond, and they didn't even have the laws that they have now. The laws they have now, it's giving you, the people that live there now, something to say that, okay, they got a buffer zone where they're gonna propose to, we hope it's just trailers and
That's the
jet
thing.
skis or whatever he's got on there. I mean, you don't want no heavy equipment stuff on there, but I think there's laws against that.
I know, but it's already there, and it shouldn't even be there. He doesn't have the authority yet, because you haven't cleared him, and he already, that's the point we're trying to make. You haven't cleared him, and he's already doing everything. That's the
That proposed plan meets all our regulations. So
Yeah.
really, the next step, you gotta go to the zoning board and with the building inspector. If you think that's too big, deal with them on that. That's their jurisdiction on that, not ours. That plan proposed passes our regulations. So that's all power we have. So you take it to zoning board, building inspector, and say, hey, I'm concerned that this is too big of a parking area. That'll be their jurisdiction to tell him to maybe to reduce the size or whatever, so he can just park a car, maybe, you know? But not our jurisdiction. That passes all our regulations, like Matt was saying.
Okay.
Thanks.
You have power, just you gotta get to the
Yeah.
right board, that's all.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Cindy Reno. I live on Lincoln Point. Yeah. Anyway, I'm thinking of a different whatever. I'm just a little nervous. Okay, so my only question to you, Matt, is what's the time frame? Say this board approves this plan. How much time does he have to do all this work that he's supposed to do? 10 years? 6 months? A year? How much time do you give him to satisfy this plan?
Well, the actual permit itself has a valid lifespan of 3 years.
3 years.
Doesn't mean he doesn't mean he can wait 2 years and 6 months and then all of a sudden cram all the work in. What it means is that there's a 2-year monitoring requirement for the vegetation that's planted. So logistically, he would have to get this done probably during the end of the summer, early fall, as far as the plantings go, because you don't want to do it now, because it's like heading into July, everything that's planted right now is going to dry out. So he's going to have to start on refining his planting plan, getting out there with me and the environmental consulting company to finalize the details, getting the initial plantings done by the end of the fall with a report to the commission. And then he would be required to have inspections on his property. I'd have to work that out with the environmental company, but it has to be a consistent monitoring period. Usually that's monthly for the first 2 years, and they submit reports to us in paper every 6 months. So in between that time, if something goes wrong and there's an issue, they're required to report it to us. So the 3 years is actually to ensure that the plantings that are done survive, grow. If something dies, it's replaced, it's maintained. Normally, these permits require any invasive plants that start deciding they're gonna rear their little noses in are managed and pulled out and taken off-site. Those are the normal course for things like that. It's not just throw a couple of shrubs in the ground, call it a day, and say, see you later. It's not how these things work.
Okay.
So it does require a fair amount of monitoring. That's the normal course.
Matt, I know that you're very good about that. I don't doubt that at all. But let's go with the scenario that we are already going with. He doesn't listen. He doesn't do it when he's supposed to. He doesn't care. Okay? So what recourse is there if, you approve this plan and we're into October and, hey, he hasn't done anything. He doesn't even have somebody to do the planting. Oh, he hasn't. What makes it that he has to have an environmental company do this planting? Couldn't he go out there and just throw a few things in by himself? I mean, what makes it that he has to follow a plan? Or is there nothing?
When we give an approval, it's not just they vote, motion, they give them a letter saying, okay, you're all set, go ahead. We issue a multi-page permit known as an order of conditions.
Okay.
It's a very wordy document that's going to need to be recorded against his deed, okay, as part of his requirement. So he records that order on his deed. The order has a bunch of conditions. We call it a permit. It's actually called an order of conditions. So we're saying as long as you follow a certain sequence based on your plan and you follow these conditions that we're giving you in this order, you're allowed to do the work. So it's a permit, but it's also an actual order at the same time. So that's what they kind of mean by order of conditions, okay?
Okay.
If he doesn't follow those orders, and we find him in violation, we send out another enforcement order, we call him in, we say, look, you're not doing your order, what are you doing here? If he gets defiant, doesn't want to follow our orders, we have to then send it to legal, which then sends it to court, where we have to probably get an injunction. I mean, we could fine, but he could blow those off too, and we have to take them to court. It can be a very complicated process, but at the same token, the commission has the advantage of being able to go to DEP and saying, okay, so we have this permit on file here, under state regulation, he is not following the approval, and he's being defiant in our orders to correct it. He's not compliant. We would like you to intervene so they can start their own separate action. And they have a lot more teeth than the towns do. So I've done that in the past. Collecting local fines and things like that can be very tedious. I mean, you're talking to a guy that worked for one town where I wound up collecting, working with my commission, like $11,000 worth of fines, but it took 3.5 years to do it, and a lot of legal. I mean, but eventually it was done. But getting the DEP to help us out, that's usually a big ticket item, as long as they move.
Okay.
So those are our vehicles.
Okay. So the only other way, the only other recourse, according to what I've heard so far at this meeting, which was a good meeting, in my opinion, is that the next step for us is to go to the building commissioner and put in a complaint that he is using this land illegally, and that's where we have to go with that, and we cannot go with anything further with this commission.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with regulation. People think, let's run government like a business. Well, a government agencies like a town hall, we're not a business. We're a regulatory agency. You have conservation regulations, building regulations, planning regulations, health regulations, even tax regulations. It's all a regulatory agency. So you've got all these individual regulations and all these individual boards. And what you guys are getting now, on the unfortunate way, educated on, is the fact that you have to know which board you got to go to, and you really got to hustle. That's just the way the process is set up. It's nothing that we have control over.
Okay, thank you.
Can we delay on voting on this until they met with the building inspector? What is that? Is there any legal precedent to that or not? I mean, can we just put it off for a month? We can't.
I want to continue the meeting.
So they go one more month.
Yep.
Then that gives them a chance to talk to the building inspector, maybe zoning board, get an appointment with the zoning board. I don't think they want as big a parking lot. I think they want a place where you can park a car or two, that's it. Franny, what do you think?
I want a full board.
What do you guys think? What do you,
I want a full board.
I would like to see this going on a month at least, no?
I think we should go through the building department and find out what Nelson thinks. Probably have better ways to stop it than he's part of it.
Well, I'd rather have a full board to vote on it than,
That's true too. But I think Nelson's got a big decision here, which way to proceed.
right.
And we should.
We got another guy up there.
So before we vote on this, extend it one more month, we're good?
Yeah.
Right, I'm okay with that.
Me too. That's my way of doing it.
May I speak? I don't want to interrupt you
Yep, that's
fellas.
fine. Go ahead.
The Joe Gadori, my property's at the north end off Cottage Road. Most of the questions I had for tonight have been answered and answered well, so thank you for that, and thank you, Matt. The one thing I would like to ask for you to clear up is my understanding is that existing old stone foundation is in an area where Mr. LeBrecq would be prevented from filling it in. Is that understanding correct? Or can he just go ahead and fill that foundation hole in?
No, there's nothing proposed on that foundation hole. It has to stay as is. It's not part of the problem.
It would have to stay as it is now?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, fine. That's what I wanted to try to understand clearly. And is that because it's in what's called in simple terms, Matt, why is that? Is it because it's in what's called the flood zone? Oh, why?
Well, I mean, in simple terms, he actually didn't put anything in his application to do anything with it, and his plan has to leave it in place. If he wanted to do something with it, he'd have to file a separate permit application, open up a separate hearing, have a set of plans done that would just address the foundation. So we'd have to look at elevation, where the floodplain is, what he wants to do with it, how would it affect the floodplain, et cetera, et cetera.
I see, okay.
So that's a whole new ball, like a whole new ball of wax.
All right, so as it stands right now, he'd have to leave it. My understanding is...
Just leave it alone.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Then thank you, fellas, for tonight. Appreciate it.
So someone want to make a motion to continue the hearing, or someone wants to vote on it? What's the pleasure of the board?
What can we do as far as
My
voting?
vote is to continue the public hearing until
That's
next
the way
month.
it is.
Put it in?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my recommendation at this point is to continue to the next meeting so I can work with the engineer to straighten out the wording on the plan so that it addresses the commission's concerns that we spoke about this evening. You know, it's mostly minor tweaking, but the language clarifications would be helpful.
That gives it a chance.
That's where I'm leaning. I'm leaning to extend it one more month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion?
Someone make a motion. Continue the public hearing.
We're going to make a motion to continue the public hearing till next month for the Hayden Pond Road property of Brian LeBrecq. It would give Matt some more time to go through the plan. And I think it would give you time to talk to the building inspector and maybe the zoning board, talk to the building inspector. It gives you a month to get that going, okay? That would be good. Well, my motion is to extend this to next month.
A second.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, next is approval of the meeting minutes. April 17th and May 29th.
Ready for a motion?
Huh?
I can make a motion.
Yep.
I Get right on that, you know. Yeah. All right, I make a motion to accept the approval of minutes for April 17th and May 29th, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been made and second to accept the meeting minutes for April 17th and May 29th.
Who seconded that? I can't hear anything.
Who seconded it?
I second it.
Franny seconded it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the MACC membership dues are due again?
It's not something we gotta pay, is it?
No.
I think it's Franny. Franny, it's your turn, I believe, so. I paid him last time, Franny, so you pay him this time.
I'm sorry, were both minutes approved? I
Yes,
didn't hear.
sorry, yeah. I made a motion to approve both the 17th and the 29th.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, yep.
Okay, someone make a motion to pay this.
I make a motion to pay the MACC annual membership dues of $461.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Someone make a motion to adjourn?
I went up there, I didn't see this foundation.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.